The rift between Prince William and Prince Harry feels almost surreal. Two brothers who once leaned on each other through the darkest moments of their lives now stand worlds apart, separated not just by geography, but by mistrust that seems to deepen with time. Insiders close to the monarchy suggest that William's hesitation to reconnect isn't merely stubbornness. It's rooted in something far more complex. At the center of it lies Meghan Markle. But contrary to what the tabloids often shout, this isn't just about jealousy or sibling rivalry. According to seasoned royal observers, William's real concern is trust. He fears that any private words spoken in confidence could be spun into public spectacle, whether in a memoir, a high-profile interview, or yet another streaming special. For a man who must protect not only his personal life, but also the crown he will one day inherit, that risk feels almost unbearable. It's not only a personal matter, it's a reflection of the monarchy itself. William doesn't act solely as Harry's brother. He acts as the heir to the throne, carrying the weight of tradition, responsibility, and public expectation. To openly reconcile with Harry while doubts about Meghan linger could appear reckless to those who see her as unpredictable, a potential threat to the institution's stability. That perception matters deeply. In the royal world, public image is currency, and every gesture can ripple into a national debate. So William holds back, cautious not only for himself, but for the monarchy he represents. The question of family loyalty only complicates things further. Meghan's own estrangement from her relatives raises uncomfortable parallels. Her father, Thomas Markle, has never met Harry, and Harry has never once shaken hands with the man who raised her. For William, that detail isn't trivial. It suggests a pattern of severed ties, of bridges burned rather than mended. Her half-siblings are cut off, her children scarcely know their grandparents, and even King Charles has met little Lilibet only once. To William, this paints a portrait of someone who discards relationships when they no longer serve her, a terrifying notion for a family built on loyalty, discretion, and unspoken duty. Those early cracks between the brothers existed long before Meghan, but they widened into chasms after she arrived. What once were simple sibling disagreements, softened by the bond of shared grief and shared history, transformed into something more permanent. The exit of Harry and Meghan from royal life didn't happen quietly. It was loud, deliberate, and public. The Oprah interview, the Spotify fallout, the memoir, all these moments delivered blows not just to William as a brother, but to the monarchy as an institution. William, who values stability above all else, saw those choices not just as painful, but as dangerous. What makes this fracture even more heartbreaking is how avoidable it once seemed. The two brothers grew up side by side under an unrelenting spotlight, endured the devastating loss of their mother, and served their country in uniform. They were bound by experiences that few could ever understand. Yet those very bonds have now been overshadowed by suspicion and silence. William's position is uniquely painful. He is torn between duty to his role and the ache of losing the one person who once understood him without words. But for now, silence reigns. Because to William, extending an olive branch feels less like reconciliation and more like opening the palace gates to another headline. And beneath all the politics, perception, and protocol lies a deeper grief. This isn't merely about royal duty, it's about a brotherhood slowly unraveling, a legacy once built on unity, now fractured in the most public of ways. What hurts most is that the person who might have pulled them back together is no longer here. Princess Diana, who loved them both fiercely, might have been able to remind them of who they were before all of this, before the cameras, before the contracts, before the silence. Without her, the gulf between them grows wider, and the chances of finding their way back feel painfully uncertain. Without Diana to steady the ground between them, the gap has only deepened, and what once was a brotherly bond has calcified into distance. Harry, in many ways, has leaned into his mother's rebellious streak, positioning himself as a challenger to the institution that shaped and, in his view, wounded him. His memoir exposed bruises, emotional scars from years of living in the shadow of both expectation and grief. Yet within those pages was also the voice of a son who still longs for his family, a man who, despite his defiance, reveals an ache for belonging. It is that contradiction, resentment intertwined with yearning, that makes his path so uncertain. He is caught between two worlds. not fully embraced in Hollywood, yet no longer welcomed within the royal fold. Meghan inevitably has become the lightning rod for all of it. Every step she takes is scrutinized, every appearance dissected, every gesture interpreted as a statement about the feud. Critics argue she lit the fire and walked away, while supporters insist she is simply bearing the weight of blame for fractures that existed long before her arrival. Her carefully curated image, elegant photo shoots, solo ventures, rebranding efforts, often looks less like coincidence and more like strategy. But for William and those watching from within the palace, that strategy only reinforces the impression that distance isn't just a circumstance for Meghan, it's a preference. The optics suggest a woman who thrives in separation rather than reconciliation, and that perception continues to fuel mistrust. Even more quietly devastating are the unseen consequences for the next generation. Archie and Lilibet, the children who might have been bridges between two families, are instead growing up isolated from both sides of their heritage. They are absent from palace life, yet not entirely rooted in American normalcy either, hovering in a kind of cultural limbo. They scarcely know their grandparents, have little connection with cousins, and are being raised by parents who themselves have severed ties with almost everyone from their own upbringings. The result is an inherited solitude that may not show now, but could echo profoundly in the years to come. For William, this adds a layer of sorrow, his own children growing up close to grandparents, cousins, and traditions, while his brother's children remain strangers to that same shared legacy. The media amplifies every fracture. In a family where discretion is survival, the knowledge that Harry and Meghan have deals tied to storytelling, podcasts, documentaries, books, casts a long shadow. Every word spoken in private could potentially become tomorrow's headline. Every reconciliation attempt turned into narrative content. Royal commentators point out that the monarchy does not see Meghan as bound by the same sense of duty that has defined the Windsors for generations. To William, duty isn't negotiable. It is the very fabric of his existence. And when that duty collides with family, the crown always wins. His silence, then, isn't just avoidance, it is protection. Protection of the monarchy, of his future role, and perhaps of himself. But the silence comes at a cost. Behind the guarded faces, there is pain, unspoken but visible in the way each avoids mention of the other. What was once natural companionship has hardened into a cold void. Two opposing legacies of the same woman, Harry carrying Diana's fire for truth-telling, William embodying her hope for stability, now stand locked against each other. It is a clash not just of brothers, but of philosophies. And with Meghan's presence amplifying the divide, every step toward reconciliation feels like an impossible negotiation. Yet for all the bitterness, the public cannot help but cling to hope. Strip away the palaces, the titles, the endless scrutiny, and what remains are two brothers shaped by grief, by love, and by a bond that once seemed unbreakable. The tragedy lies in watching that bond unravel under the world's gaze, knowing that if there is a path back, it must be walked in private, away from the cameras, away from the commentary. Until then, the silence lingers, heavy and unresolved, with each passing day making it harder to remember what closeness once felt like. And so the silence lingers, but silence does not erase memory. Those who were closest to Diana often say she would never have let this chasm grow so wide. She had a way of cutting through noise, of reminding her boys of who they were before titles, before expectations, before the weight of monarchy began shaping them. Without her, the task of bridging that gap has fallen to no one, leaving a vacuum that grows larger with each passing year. Harry evokes her often, consciously aligning himself with her spirit of defiance, while William has taken up her steadiness, her instinct to preserve, to keep things intact. They are two halves of the same legacy, yet instead of uniting them, that inheritance now pulls them apart. What makes the fracture even more tragic is how visible it is. The world has watched, not just as an audience, but as participants, dissecting every gesture, every word, until private pain became public entertainment. Meghan's choices, whether deliberate or circumstantial, are continually cast as provocations. Every carefully crafted photo, every polished event, feels to critics like another signal of separation, while supporters see it as self-protection from an institution unwilling to accept her. Either way, she has become a prism through which all family tension refracts, making reconciliation even harder. For William, the fear is not simply about what has already been said, but about what could still be said. Every olive branch carries the risk of becoming another headline, another narrative beyond his control. Harry himself is left in a limbo that grows more uncomfortable with time. His memoir painted him as a man still haunted by the past, resentful of his upbringing, yet aching for the very family he has distanced himself from. His life in America offers freedom, but not fulfillment. He is not fully embraced by Hollywood, nor entirely cut off from the monarchy he left behind. In this halfway existence, he seems untethered, his every attempt to speak out deepening the very isolation he longs to escape. For William, this reinforces the sense that his brother cannot be trusted, not out of malice, but out of pain that never finds the right outlet. The generational cost is perhaps the quietest wound of all. Archie and Lilibet grow up not in the embrace of cousins, grandparents, and the traditions that shape their father's childhood, but at a distance. Their absence from both worlds, the palace and ordinary American life, creates a strange middle ground, one defined by what has been cut away rather than what has been built. To the monarchy, this feels like the erosion of continuity. To Harry and Meghan, it is protection. But for the children, it may one day feel like loss. Ultimately, what unfolds between William and Harry is both deeply personal and painfully universal. Families fracture, siblings grow apart, trust erodes under the weight of words said and unsaid. But this family is forced to endure it beneath the harshest light imaginable, with millions invested in the outcome. Perhaps that is why the public still clings to hope, that despite pride, politics, and pain, two brothers might someday remember the bond that once defined them. Yet for now, the reality is stark. William bound to protect a crown, Harry bound to protect his truth. Meghan willingly or unwillingly caught as the symbol of mistrust between them. And in the middle, silence, heavy, unbroken, and for the moment, unmovable.